I'm continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a little bit as I move along. Right now we are reading about the construction of the temple. Solomon is building the temple. In 1 Kings, we have had a basic description of the two cherubim, the size and shape of the temple building, the two cherubims that were built, carved for the Holy of Holies, and the two pillars that stand outside the temple. In Chronicles, we have also read about the cherubims and the two pillars. Right now, we pick this up in 2 Chronicles chapter 4. I do want to make one other quick mention. Well, we will leave that. Let's just read this. Second Chronicles chapter 4. Solomon makes the molten sea, or baptismal font. Places it on 12 oxen. They make the altar and basins and pots and various items. Moreover, he made an altar of brass, 20 cubits the length thereof, and 20 cubits the breadth thereof, and 10 cubits the height thereof. Also he made a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in compass, and 5 cubits the height thereof, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under it was the similitude of oxen, which did compass it round about, 10 in a cubit, compassing the sea round about. 2 rows of oxen were cast. When it was cast, it stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking towards the north, and 3 looking towards the west, and 3 looking towards the south, and 3 looking towards the east. And the sea was set above them, and was set above upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. And the thickness of it was an handbreadth, and the brim of it like the work of the brim of a cup, with flowers of lilies, and it received and held 3,000 baths. In other words, this is a large basin, 10 cubits wide, that's about 15 feet wide, 5 deep. It is sitting on top of these oxen, very well and intricately carved. You don't have something this size that is not made for immersing something, at least in this case, most likely, immersing people into it. This is why we know it is a baptismal font. This is where people would go to be baptized, because this basin is too large to be practical for anything else. But it is large enough to easily baptize people by immersion, as we know is proper. So, verse 6. He made also 10 lavers, and put 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left, to wash in them. Such things as they offered for the burnt offering they washed in them. But the sea was for the priests to wash in. And he made 10 candlesticks of gold according to their form, and set them in the temple, 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left. He made also 10 tables, and placed them in the temple, 5 on the right hand and 5 on the left. And he made 100 basins of gold. Furthermore, he made the court of the priests, and the great court, and the doors of the court, and overlaid the doors of them with brass. And he set the sea on the right side of the east end, over against the south. And Hiram made the pots and the shovels and the basins, and Hiram finished the work that he was to make for King Solomon for the house of God. To wit, the 2 pillars, and the pommels, and the chapiters which were on the top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 wreaths to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were on the top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates on the 2 wreaths, 2 rows of pomegranates on each wreath to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were upon the pillars. He made also bases, and lavers made he upon the bases. 1 sea and 12 oxen under it. The posts also, and the shovels, and the flesh hooks, and all their instruments did Hiram his father make to King Solomon for the house of the Lord of bright brass. In the plain of Jordan did the king cast them in the clay ground between Succoth and Zeradatha. Thus Solomon made all these vessels in great abundance, for the weight of the brass could not be found out. And Solomon made all the vessels that were for the house of God, the golden altar also, and the tables whereon the shewbread was set. Moreover, the candlesticks with their lamps that they should burn after the manner before the oracle of pure gold, and the flowers and the lamps and the tongs made he of gold, and that perfect gold, and the snuffers and the basins and the spoons and the censers of gold of pure gold, and the entry of the house, the inner doors thereof for the most holy place, and the doors of the house of the temple were of gold. Okay, I'm not going to get into the details of the construction because I'm no architect. I don't understand half of what's going on here, really. But they made lavers, and these are smaller basins. These are dishes where you could wash, the instruments that were used for the burnt offerings, or wash, because in the burnt offerings you have to wash the inside of the animal. You kill them, and then you wash out the inside and burn the fat and everything. So that's what these lavers were for. The rest of it, we just get this description of everything that was made, which I don't understand half of it. But everything that was inside the temple itself was made of gold, and everything in the outer court is made of brass. I do also find it interesting, they say there are 10 candlesticks and 10 tables of shewbread. Remember, in the tabernacle, there was one table for the shewbread and one candlestick. So we now have this time stand. We've made a temple big enough that many priests can minister in it at the same time. Now, the brazen sea, or baptismal font, is set to the side. The altar for burnt offerings, the original altar, I can't remember, but it was like 5 cubits by 5 cubits. Big enough, like 7 feet by 7 feet. That's big enough to do an altar, do a sacrifice on. But this altar is 20 by 20. It's 4 times as big. So now we have an altar big enough that we could do 4 or 5. Well, you can actually probably do at least 4, possibly up to 6 sacrifices at the same time. We are making things bigger so that we can do more at once. So now I know it does say that it says the basin, the sea, was there for the priests to wash in. But this is out in public. They are not, they're not taking a bath. They're not just dipping themselves in. This, as I say, the only real reason for something this big in this kind of a public area is for baptisms, which that is the washing. You're washing your sins away. And as we've seen shown through the Joseph Smith translation, restoring portions of Genesis, baptism definitely was part of the ancient religion, even for the Jews, even for Israel. They had baptism. This is an ordinance that existed from the time of Adam. And so we know this. We know they were baptizing, and then to have this giant molten sea, the only logical reason for it is for baptisms. So I'm going to leave that here. We will be returning to 1 Kings chapter 7 in the next video, where we will again read about most of this stuff again. So see you then.